Martha Malone. Monroe, excuse me. I do want to thank the people who remembered about the film, The Plastic. And Oak Hammock has the offer of a Trex collection box. Okay, not everybody was here last week. Let me real quickly fill you in. If you collect 1,000 pounds of the kind of plastic that is not recyclable by the county or the city, you can win free a 1,000 pounds worth of a Trex bench. Trex is plastic lumber, virtually indestructible and weatherproof. Several people brought in plastic, and I will be here for the next 4 weeks and quite possibly after that, and I'll be happy to be your distribution person. So bring me your tired, your poor, your film that is not plastic bottles. If it crinkles, don't bring it, but the film that covers your cucumbers, the plastic bag, your frozen peas come in. Your Publix bags, don't give them to Publix. Let Oak Hammock get a bench. So, and if you don't want the bench, you can give it to one of the religious institutions who are also avidly collecting plastic. So I wanted to make that point. I also wanted to let you know that I occasionally bring in a nonpartisan citizen action project, and on the back round table is the Right to Clean Water petition. 2 years ago, many of you signed the petition to put an amendment on the Florida Constitution giving citizens the right to sue the state of Florida for not obeying our own environmental laws about the quality of our water, which, as you know, is where you have low flows in the rivers and the springs. We have red tide, we have blue-green algae. So the DEP is not doing what it should do, and right now we have no recourse. So this would put a constitutional amendment, much like Amendment 4, giving citizens a right to do something. So you can sign that petition if you did it. You may have signed it 2 years ago. That petition drive ended, so we are doing a new petition drive. And then lastly, if you'd like to be on my own Clio Institute mailing list, I'm going to pass this board around. And if I can borrow a pen, maybe, or a pencil. Julianne, thank you. I'd love to have you on my Clio Institute mailing list. I'm wearing it. Climate leadership engagement opportunities. Those of you who are familiar with me know that my mission in life right now, my third act, if you will, the reason I sold my business as an investment manager and my home in Miami and moved here is to create climate conversations in every kitchen, in every home in Alachua County. And so the Clio Institute has actually hired me to keep spreading the word about climate. And that's why we have this Is It Hot in Here or Is It Me series. And today we're going to look at, so what can I do about climate change? And many people are alarmed. Mostly you probably are at least concerned, or you wouldn't be in this particular class. And so I've brought one of the leading Gainesville, probably Florida specialists on what can you do about climate change. So let me just read you a little tiny bit about our speaker. Martha Monroe is a professor emeritus. You can read on the screen forest, fisheries, and geomatics. You'll have to define geomatics for us, please. And she worked at the University of Florida. She's a specialist in environmental education, and in fact, I met her in that realm. She's also a specialist in conservation behavior and extension program development. She knows how to help people make behavior changes, which is a really hard lift in a topic as big and scary as climate change. And so I'd like you to give a warm Oak Hammock welcome to Martha Monroe.
Thank you all. I'll try to stand so that I'm in the line of sight for our folks on Zoom. It's just wonderful to see you all here today. Thank you for coming. And thanks to Ellen for cooking up this topic. We'll see how it flies with all of you. And thanks to Pam and Julianne who got us all together and put things on got your handouts ready for you. We'll talk about those in a minute. So as you can see, I'm not a specialist in climate change. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a geographer. I'm not a geomatics person. That's the new name for remote sensing and surveying and mapping. They use drones now instead of airplanes and satellites. That's geomatics. And they're everywhere. But anyway, so I have paper and pencil with me today. If you have questions I can't answer, we've got two options. Number one, I'll write them down and get back to you. Number two, maybe somebody else has an answer and they're willing to pipe up and shed some light on that particular question. And that's fine. As we proceed, if you have a question or if something doesn't make sense or you've heard something that's different than what I'm saying, just put up your hand and let's talk about it. That's fine too. This is casual. We're just going to explore this topic. And maybe by the end of this time, you'll have some ideas of something you can do or you can help others do to help mitigate our climate change issues. So, are we ready? Does that make sense? We'll just get started. And it works. Thanks. So it does seem that it's hotter out there than it used to be. And more people are saying, gee, I wish there was something I can do. They may be overwhelmed. Hold it a little closer. Thank you. They may feel like there's nothing an individual can do to affect a global problem. And so it's easier to say, well, we'll let somebody else do it. They're younger, they've got more power. Maybe that's true, but I also think there's a lot everybody can do. And everybody needs to be doing something. The trick is finding out what is it that would be most useful that you can do. I have a few slides just to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of what it is that's happening right now. These are, oh yeah, can the little box, probably this lower corner, if we need the box, could go down here or we could get rid of it. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. These three graphs come from the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That's the group that the United Nations has contracted with to say what's going on out there, to explore all the science. The black line in each of these three graphs is the same, and that black line is temperature. So that's the global temperature. The straight line is the average of 1880 to 1910 global temperature. So just as a baseline to say, how much are we changing from that point? And that's the same in all three. The one on the top with the yellow and green and purple little lines show natural influences, natural factors, and how they affect global temperature. The heavy yellow line, which you could barely see, is all three of those natural drivers glued together. Green is volcanic, purple is solar, the brown is orbital issues. So things that humans don't have anything to do with, they're changing anyway. And you can see all of those natural influences keep the temperature at about what it was from 1880 to 1910. They don't account for an increase in temperature. If we go to the middle graph, these are human drivers, the things that people are responsible for. And sorry, Zoom people, I'm walking over here. The brown line is aerosols. That doesn't mean spray cans. That means tiny little particles in the atmosphere like soot. That would lower temperature because it blocks the sun. Land cover is green. Some things about land cover increase temperature, like urban heat islands. Some things reduce temperature. If we average them all together, it's actually reducing temperature. The yellow here in the middle is ozone. The purple one at the top is greenhouse gases. When you add all those together, you get the red line through the middle, that pretty much approximates the temperature increases that we've seen. Down here, we have all the drivers glued together, natural and human, in this gold line. And it also comes close to looking at what it is that has been happening on our planet, which is why the IPCC report says in really firm likelihood that humans and natural factors are changing our temperature, which in turn is changing our climate. So that's what they're telling us. And you can see that it's not just one thing, but many things put together. Those greenhouse gases, however, are the only thing that's increasing temperature when you look at all of these factors together. So that's why they're the big culprit. That's why people are pointing the finger at greenhouse gases. So what are greenhouse gases? Well, they're natural. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. They've been here from the beginning. They're still here. And in fact, if we did not have these greenhouse gases creating a greenhouse effect, we wouldn't have life on Earth, because they create this very useful insulation around the planet. The sun's energy comes in, it becomes heat as it hits the Earth, the heat bounces back. It used to be that much of that heat escaped, but with a thicker insulating blanket around the atmosphere, more greenhouse gases, the increase that we saw in that last graph, now that heat isn't escaping as often as it used to, and it keeps bouncing back and forth and raising the temperature of the planet. Okay? Of those 4 greenhouse gases, one that has caught much of the attention has been carbon dioxide. We've been looking at increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide for the last, well, since the 1950s. This is the famous graph from the volcano Mauna Loa in Hawaii, where they look at constantly how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere, and it's going up and up and up. I think it's kind of interesting that it's not a smooth line, it's this zigzag. Does anybody know what the zigzags is from? It makes perfect sense. If you want to say something, you're going to have to say it loudly, because I don't hear so well. Oh, wait, sorry, what? Seasonality, exactly. This is in the Northern Hemisphere. And in the Northern Hemisphere, the deciduous leaves drop in the wintertime and come out in the summertime. So in the wintertime, the trees all across the northern half of the planet are not absorbing carbon dioxide. So there's more in the atmosphere. Leaves come out, start to do their thing, there's less carbon dioxide. Every year, it goes up and down and up and down. And so the monitoring system was good enough to capture that difference, which impresses me. But you can see it's going up. And carbon dioxide does a pretty good approximation to temperature. Here's 1980 to 2019. It's not perfect, because this is only one of the greenhouse gases, and we just saw how many other factors also affect global temperature. So yeah, add them all together, you come closer, but at least that one is the smoking gun at this point. So we're already seeing some of these impacts. We are seeing, and this image comes from the same IPCC report. We've seen impacts on people and impacts on ecosystems all over the world. It's not the same everywhere. There's great variation, because there's atmospheric rivers and currents and all sorts of things that change how the weather is responding at different points on the planet. The Arctic ice is smaller than it used to be. The ocean is warming because some of that carbon dioxide goes into the ocean, becomes carbonic acid, and sea level rise is changing. So the acidic nature of the ocean is changing, and the level of the ocean is changing. and the temperature is changing all together. So there's just, it's a system and it's all connected. You increase the temperature, you change the weather patterns. You change the weather patterns, you change when trees leaf out and bloom. That changes when the insects are going to be laying their eggs and pollinating the flowers. That changes when the animals are eating the insect. Everything is all connected. Changes when people want to harvest the crops, what insects are eating the crops. It's all, I mean, you've seen the news, you know. When I was a kid, I don't remember blizzards and wildfires and floods being the headline news items on the nightly news. It was usually war. I don't know if it's a conscious effort, but now it seems like headline news is weather often, more often than it used to be. Okay, some of those impacts. We've got natural resources. In Florida, people are concerned about shoreline, beach erosion, habitat changes, invasive exotics coming in because their range is extending, endangered species going out because their range is constricting, more wildfires, all sorts of things. Once the natural resources change, the habitats change, then we've got infrastructure changes. We're dealing with flooding. We have to get rid of this water. We have to replumb our wastewater systems to be able to have outflow reach the ocean. Otherwise, it's pooling up somewhere else. Saltwater intrusion to groundwater threats. Bridges and roadways have to be raised and elevated if they're in the flood zones. Power plants, we're using our air conditioning more. That's drawing more power. How are we producing that? Do all of our homes have air conditioning? It just, the questions go on and on and on. These are all related to economics. It takes money to do these fixes. We might be getting less tourism or tourism in different places. That changes the economy. We can think about green jobs and the new markets that are coming down the pike. Are people being trained to do those things? Do we need new community college courses to get people to do the new jobs that are coming along? Homeowner insurance rates are going up. Tax revenue is changing. This is all part of our economy. And there's health issues. It's not just the people who are working outside in the heat. It's also the people who don't have air conditioning. Thanks. Just keep reminding me. I won't take offense. I'll try to remember, but help me. People are anxious. There's actually reports of teenagers exhibiting climate anxiety because they're concerned about their future. Some people are taking this seriously. Ellen, do you get the clipboard back or has it gone all around? Thanks. And they're worried. They're worried about what the future is going to hold. Some people are thinking about moving. Some people don't have the resources to think about moving. So some populations are more vulnerable to all of these impacts. Rural communities have fewer resources than urban communities. The inland communities like Gainesville will see more migration from the coast, like Ellen. So all these things are happening. Because it's defined as a global problem, we need global solutions. And that's why the United Nations has authored, oops, thank you. What happened here? You know, this is on automatic focus and I took it off and for some reason it's not there. So how about if we exit from showing? Oh, now our Zoom people aren't seeing. So we're just going to go back to share our screen. And we are going to go back here. Would you mind looking at, is this okay? Do you want to leave it like that? Or you want me to make it big? I don't know. As soon as we do this, it's going to flip to automatic, and I don't know why it's doing that because I've taken it off. So, oh, that's okay. I can, maybe I can't. I don't know. We'll see how it works. Yeah, I can do it. Okay. Sorry about that. And Zoom people, I'm sorry that you've got that stuff on the side. Well, everybody, I'm sorry you've got that stuff on the side. This might be better. So the global problem, we think about global solutions, which is why the United Nations has authorized the IPCC to do things, why the Paris Agreement has various nations agreeing on reducing. Is there an echo in here? Is it me? No, it's fine. Okay. Why people are agreeing to reduce how much carbon they're burning in fossil fuels, changing their fuel system and electricity. But that's only going to get us so far. It's not going to do everything. And if we change the problem to be local, then local solutions are a good answer. The IPCC is not going to tell Oak Hammock what to do, but you can. And so we can solve problems at a local scale if we downscale the nature of the problem. So this is a paper, and some of you picked up this copy of the paper. I think there's more on the back. If people didn't get this, you may not be interested in it, and you're not going to offend me if you're not. But if you want to know what it says, you can pick up the copy. Basically, it's people who said, you know, households could conserve a lot of energy if they did these 17 things. They recognize that not everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon and do all these things. So the paper talks about what percentage of the American public is likely to do this if we had social marketing, incentives, information, etc. If we did a good job of promoting these 17 things, then how much energy could we save? If everybody did it, 38% of the energy that we use could be saved. And that's more greenhouse gas emissions than any other country except China emits as a country. So our household energy use is significant. And these authors are saying, let's not wait for Congress to do something. Let's encourage individuals to do what we can do. And so they've chosen 17 actions, and they didn't assume that everybody will do them, but they still are significant. So the kinds of things they are, which I'm sorry, it's harder to read, things that require a one-time investment, like a fuel-efficient car or weatherization. They recognize people aren't going to drop everything and do that right away, but when they need to replace things like appliances or cars, they could buy something more energy efficient. And so it's those kinds of things they're talking about. Things that require maintenance, like changing air filters in air conditioners. Things that are the one time, like lowering the temperature on the washing machine or the hot water heater, saves energy. And it's part of the 17 items. Repeated action that people have to do over and over again, like carpooling. And they mentioned line drying your clothes on the clothesline, which I frankly enjoy doing. I think it's one of the best parts of my day. I recognize everybody can't do it, but there's also contraptions that you can dry clothes inside an apartment if people wanted to. So when you take all those 17 things, the most effective of all 17 are these 5: fuel-efficient vehicles, carpooling and trip chaining. I mean, why wouldn't you do more errands all at once if you're getting in the car and going someplace? That just makes sense to me. Home weatherization, fuel-efficient driving behaviors, not revving up really fast and braking when you need to, but slowly. Energy-efficient appliances. Once they say, well, not everybody's going to do them, now what are the 5 most efficient? Still fuel-efficient vehicles, if only 50% of the public over 10 years get one. Home weatherization, because they assume 90% of the people will eventually do that. Energy efficient appliances at 80%. Efficient HVAC equipment at 80%. and fuel efficient driving behaviors, even if only 25% of the people do it. So that car that we all own is a big source of carbon. Now, this is only energy. There's all sorts of other actions that we're also part of. And Project Drawdown has looked at many sources and many opportunities for thinking about behaviors and changes that can reduce carbon emissions. They've done the research. You can get on their website and find out what the numbers really are, the assumptions they make. I can show you a little bit more about what it looks like. But it's basically 3 categories of actions, and they've listed over 90 different actions. Those 3 categories have to do with reducing the amount of carbon emissions, with enhancing the sink, the place where the carbon gets absorbed, the atmosphere, the land, and the ocean. And the third one is improving society. And you might think, well, now, wait a minute. How does improving society change our climate? And it's because it's a system and everything's connected together. If we improve education for girls around the world, women have fewer children. If women have fewer children, then we're using less carbon. And so those are some of the examples. If people have a livelihood that helps them, if they have more money in the bank, they have more resources, more opportunities, and eventually it gets around to using less carbon. And so that's what they're saying is a possibility. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to give you some assurity that, yes, they do have statistics and science. The size of the circle is the amount of carbon that does not go into the atmosphere. And so in electricity, shifting the production from fossil fuels to maybe some of it's biorenewables, maybe some of it's solar, some of it's wind, some of it's hydro, lots of just shifting it off of fossil fuels and enhancing efficiency. Enhancing efficiency won't ever be as big a bubble as shifting production. We're in the orange here. But the minimum is almost the same as the maximum. That's the difference between the center circle and the outside circle. So almost anything we do is going to be a benefit there. Food and agriculture, industry, transportation, and buildings are the different categories of reducing sources of carbon emissions. Land use, improving society, it's mostly around health and education. The 4 things that they have identified, the 4 actions that make the biggest impact, are reducing food waste. And this doesn't mean just cleaning up your plate, although that's part of it. But it also means food waste in the farm, food waste in the grocery store, food waste in the transportation between the two, food waste in the kitchen. It's food waste all along the chain. We throw away 1/3 of the food we grow. The food we grow takes fertilizer, takes water, takes transportation fuel. We would save a lot of carbon if we don't throw away 1/3 of the food we grow. So that's what that means. Eating a plant-rich diet means eating less meat, because meat involves cows and hogs and chickens that require more food. So that's, again, the fertilizer and everything. But cows also burp methane, which is one of those greenhouse gases. So reducing the meat in our diet, eating more plants. Now, that's not to say plants don't also require transportation and fertilizer and everything else. We never get to zero because we're alive. We're just trying to reduce our footprint. Onshore wind turbines and utility scale solar photovoltaics are the other two really, really big items that could help. And we've seen this. If you drive anywhere, but what I know is the intersection of 75 and 10, there's a giant solar field out there. It just goes on and on and on as you go north on 75. And so people are putting these in. More and more wind turbines are out there. And that's kind of exciting. So let me pause right there. We'll go back. Does anybody have any questions so far or comments, things you'd like to say? And we can somehow look at the chat to see if great, Pam's going to handle that. Any comments or questions? Three new messages. There were maybe, yeah. No. Here. I'm sorry about the sound. Okay, that's what most of the comments are about. I need to speak right into this. Question, yes. Here, I'll do this so they can hear you too.
As I recall, the Earth has been in the area of 400 part per million carbon dioxide in the past, remote past, but is there any information on what it was like at that time?
Yes, great question. It has to do with the carbon dioxide because we're not getting new carbon dioxide from the planets. The carbon dioxide that we have here now has always been here. It's been in diamonds, it's been in coal, it's been in plant leaves, it's been on the planet. And there actually was a time, 800 million years ago, when carbon dioxide was in the atmosphere at the same levels it is now and worse. And it was hot. It was before there were cities, before there was agriculture, before there were human inhabitation. And so it was a long, long time ago, millions and millions of years ago. Not in human history has the temperature been this high. Ellen wants to add.
No,
No? Okay, sorry. But I think that's a good question because we haven't seen it, but the planet has seen it before. Other things? Okay, so what I'd like you to do is start thinking about, well, what could I do? And I think it's easiest. You've got a worksheet, and folks online, you'll just have to take notes. I have some extra pens and pencils if you don't have one. But I'd like you to talk to your neighbors. Maybe it's the person next to you, maybe it's the person behind you. It may be hard to unhook these chairs and turn around. You're also welcome to stand up and go somewhere else. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to talk to each other, to think about what you can do. And this worksheet will give you some hints for organizing yourself. So let's look at this. Oops. So for example, you've got, when I was in college, everything was a 2x2 table. So this is a 2x2 table. We've got at the top, who makes the decision to do it? And you've got two choices. You working by yourself or individuals working with others. That's where the decision gets made. And then who is it that's taking the action to do these things? People like you and me, individuals, or groups or organizations or agencies. Somebody else is going to do it. So in this first little box, people could decide, I mean, it doesn't have to be you exactly. It could be any individual could decide to ride a bike to the grocery store or turn down the thermostat or eat less meat. Those are things individuals decide in their own life and they take the action. So by and large, when people say, oh, you can help do something about climate, that's what they mean. It's in that box. If you continue down, individuals, like any of us, could request that a change gets made by a group or an organization or agency. We could write a letter. We could speak at a hearing. We could educate others. We could offer to help. So those are things individuals could do working by themselves, but try to get somebody else to actually do the action, okay? The group or the agency, the organization. In the next column, you don't have to work by yourself. Individuals could work with others. And in doing that, you could offer encouragement or information for individuals to make change. And finally, individuals can work with others to advocate for change with those groups and organizations and agencies through civic groups, actions. I mean, many of you work in, you're on committees, you work in organizations, so those kinds of things could help. You can think of, you can brainstorm these boxes, fill in these boxes in two ways. You could think about you, me, what can I do? Or you can think about other people in the world. It doesn't have to be living in Okamic. It could be people in Gainesville, people in your family. What could just people do? We're not talking about people with power, like you have to be the mayor in order to do X, Y, Z. You don't have to think about that. Just people. What can people do? I can leave this set on the blanks if you want. That will help our distant people. Or I could leave this set with the filled in the blanks to help give you ideas. But I don't want this to limit your ideas. I don't want you to, I don't want this to affect you. So I'd kind of rather you start with blanks. But brainstorm. Anything goes. You don't have to critique. Oh, well, that's not a good idea. Just write it down. Does anybody need a pen or a pencil? Okay, great. 5 minutes. Go for it. People are still thinking. So how about if you wrap up in another minute or two, and then we'll hear what you have to say. You want to walk around? Let's start with them. We've got some small groups that are still working. So since you've had a long and detailed conversation, we'll let you start. And what I'd like you to do is pick one or two of your ideas and tell us which box they go in and give us a sense of what you think people could do.
Well, we were very focused on OCAMIC and individuals working with others, meaning all of us at OCAMIC. We have practically no other boxes filled, but we got caught up there. We said, create a residence council subcommittee on environmental change at OCAMIC. I need to talk louder? Whoa, okay, I'll talk louder. The first one was creating a residence council subcommittee on environmental change at OCAMIC to generate more ideas, to make it easier for people with electric cars to use them safely. Safely, we underline safely at OCAMIC. Discussion of food waste in the kitchen. Okay, we got to pick the best ones. We reduce water use in our landscaping and better landscaping choices to conserve water. I guess I have to stop there. I like the other one, so but I've got the microphone.
Okay, so it sounds like those are ideas that individuals could work together in a committee and influence OCAMIC's decisions around food waste and landscaping and other issues of concern that have to do with carbon. So that group was over on this side. Go ahead.
Okay, we have quite a number of people working with composting here at OCAMIC and incorporating many others working for one person who has now been named, I think they call it Worm Mother. And so that's one thing. The other thing would be to, we mentioned under that would be individual financial investing with planet-friendly companies. And just I'm looking for anything else that hasn't been mentioned. Oh, we use multiple transportation situations here. Instead of many cars going to Publix or to the campus, we have many people going in a bus.
Right. Okay. So again, more of those groups working to influence OCAMIC decisions.
Well, I'm not quite sure, but I'm talking about the world too. And I'm talking to other people about these big windmills and they're starting to fall down. Do you know what the next step is? Does anybody talk about it? The windmills, those big.
The big windmills.
They're starting to fall down and the eagles and birds get killed in them big time.
You know, I've read something about these big windmills, and the the earlier generation of them did have a lot of bird strikes. Birds and bats were killed by windmills. But now the blades are bigger, they're longer, and they go slower. And so it's possible for the birds to navigate around them. And so I believe that there's fewer bird kills now. And so that's a good thing. We're getting better. Oh, you have another question?
I talked to my daughter, and she is environmentally very involved. But she told me too that in nursing homes, the facilities are not really updated to handling recycling. They have not enough rooms for storing all of this stuff. So is there something that I don't, besides building on or so, there's nothing to do? So it gets into the garbage.
Yeah, how waste is processed, stored, and processed is an issue. It's a concern. And I don't know what happens in Okamek, but grocery stores and universities and schools all have similar problems. And so I think if we go to this side of the column, we would say, okay, a committee needs to find out what's going on and collect some data. And if there's a concern, then to work with the organization or the maintenance people or the whoever it is to see what kinds of solutions can be created. And so you're over here in this column. So those are great ideas.
Okay, all of ours are in the first box.
Okay.
Individual.
They're right over here in this
It's all,
box.
it's all about us.
Okay.
We don't work well with others. Drive conservatively. I have an EV with it tells me each trip what my mileage is. So I work to keep it close to 40 miles an hour, a gallon, I'm sorry, if I can. Yeah. When I come on campus, I turn it to EV only. They're out the gas. Print on both sides of the paper for the printer for long documents. Print both sides instead of one side. Use more public transport. Take local applications rather than distant ones. We don't waste fuel. Consider an EV vehicle. Eat less meat and use leftover food creatively.
Great. Thanks. I think that we might have to wrap up soon. Does anybody have one idea that hasn't been mentioned yet? Great.
Yes, a carbon tax. You put a value on carbon dioxide, why people will be more careful about it. I'm sorry. Yes, a carbon tax. If you put a value on carbon dioxide as a result, why people are more careful about releasing it or doing something creative with it.
Pam, Shirley would like to say something. Can you put her on screen for us? Thank you. I'm going to collect these and make a list of what Okamek residents in this class have come up with and distribute it through Pam back to you for next week. It's very exciting.
Okay.
Shirley, go ahead.
I wonder if we could outlaw bottled water unless an emergency.
Outlaw bottled water is what you're suggesting. You need to, Shirley, get on this committee. You've got to start.
Well, it really would affect the springs and everything else. But it's a big company that would react or reject that. But I think maybe people could go along those lines.
So thank you. Are there other Zoom comments? Okay, thank you. So, okay, can you click on the next one? Well, the white one. Yeah, thank you. So we don't have time to have more of a discussion, but the kinds of things you could think about as you look at your list or the joint list is, which of these things could we really do here? And what would we need to do them? What resources, what expertise, what do we need? You might think about which of those 4 squares has the most potential for making change and focus there. And what do other people need to nudge to move in the right direction? When I work with others to do this kind of work, the first step is always pick something that you're passionate about. Pick something you really care about. And then find some other people who share your passion so you can work together. Because you don't have to do it alone. Things are often more interesting if we work together. The exercise really is to break down the goal into steps. What information do we need? What resources do we need? What's the decision-making structure? And who has power to make a change? And when you figure that out, then the thing to do might be kind of obvious. And I encourage at least kids to start by making a request for a change. That's part of our democracy. That's what we want responsible citizens to do. Be active, be engaged, make a request. Larry had his hand, and then I'll come back to you.
Would you comment on the effect and influence of the Heartland Group? Heartland. You don't know them? The Heartland Organization Institute. On the influence of the Heartland Institute. You know them?
Oh, the Heartland.
Yes.
Oh.
Tell them.
Yeah, Larry wants me to mention the fact that there's some controversy about what it is we should do and whether or not there's a problem and things like that. There are institutions that don't want change to happen, but I think change is happening anyway. The planet is getting hotter, and we can't ignore that. In my estimation, the sooner we take steps to reduce the carbon emissions, the more time we'll have to adapt to the changing environment. But you're right. The Heartland Institute is one of the examples of organizations that spreads different information, which Larry would like to call disinformation or misinformation. And it's a problem because it's hard to get everyone on the same page when they get conflicting information and they ping pong back and forth from one to the other. So we need to be aware of that, that's for sure.
Some time ago, we had a very good friend. His wife suddenly passed away, and he received so many flowers, they didn't know what to do with them. I mean, it was a pain in the neck for them. And another gentleman just passed away, and he requested no flowers, but plant trees.
So that would be something in that first box. What individuals can do is make requests when they die for some things or not some things. And you're right, that's a good example. Okay, I think there's a lot we can do. You have time, you have wisdom, you have experience from years and years of living. Almost anything you choose to do can move us in the right direction. And you have a world ahead of you. So I would say take advantage of any opportunity, use the media effectively, let other people know what you're doing. Ask why and why not. And what's the worst that can happen? It's not going to get any hotter if you're doing something. So let's do something. Ellen wants to carry on.
I hate to pull the plug on this great conversation, and it leads to two things to suggest to this august group. One of my ideas for a future climate program is actually an action-oriented program, not purely information. So I want you to plant that little seed in your activist brains and think about how you might like to be engaged in that. And somebody is trying to tell us something. Oh, okay. Sorry, Julianne. Obviously, I would like to very much thank Martha for this very engaging and very instructional, using different graphs than you're tired of my showing you. So thank you for bringing the IPCC here. So can we give her a warm OCAMIC thank you? And we'll see you next week when I am your speaker.